Well, the time is just gone 8:22 a.m. as we continue with the broadcast this morning. Now, we are doing a book review, and the book is called A Wound Unhealed. Does Christian Zionism Contribute to Palestinian Suffering? And this book has been authored by Nicholas Brabazon Kerr. And he was born in and has lived in KwaZulu Natal all his life. He was ordained in the Anglican Church of Southern Africa in 1984. He is an honorary canon of the Cathedral of the Holy Nativity and has served two terms as an archdeacon. Also, he's been to the Holy Land and that was in 1982. Now, in his retirement years, 40 years later, he has been piecing together reports gathered over the years from journalists, eyewitnesses, and other commentators to discover more about the plight of Palestinians. And this is exactly what we are talking about, and also academically highly qualified, a BA in Geography and Biblical Studies at UNISA. He's got a BA Honors in Biblical Studies and also HED at UNISA. He's got a diploma in theology at St. Paul's College and a master's in linguistics, intercultural communication at the University of Stellenbosch. And right now, it's my pleasure to welcome to the show this morning the author of the book, A Wound Unhealed, Does Christian Zionism Contribute to Palestinian Suffering? Nicholas Brabazon Kerr. Nicholas, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Inayet, and good morning to the viewers. And it's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Yes, wonderful that you're able to join us now. Before we talk about the book in itself, and you've got quite a comprehensive, quite an interesting background. Just the biography that you've sent us, there's a lot more to it, and just taking a look at your interest in Palestine, going back, how did it come about?
Well, it came about when I was able to travel to Israel and Palestine in 1982. I just resigned from my job as a teacher, and I was preparing to study for ordination in the Anglican Church. And we decided that we would go to Israel because some of our church members had been and reported back very positively on their experience of Israel. So we went to Israel, but we stayed in East Jerusalem, which is the Palestinian side of Jerusalem. And so we discovered a different situation from the other people that had spoken to us about their experience in Jerusalem. And one afternoon, I walked down the street and went into a curio shop and got talking to the man behind the counter and discovered that he was a Palestinian Christian. And so we talked, and then he introduced me to his next door neighbor who was running the Bible Society of Jerusalem. And I discovered that he was also a Palestinian Christian and the pastor of a small church. And he invited my wife and I to come to his house that very evening for supper. And so I went back to where we were staying and told my wife, and we agreed that we would go and see him. It wasn't far away. And we had a very wonderful meal with him. His wife and mother-in-law could not speak much English, but they did know how to say welcome. And the last question I asked him was, what do you think of Christian Zionism? And he said, no, I can't possibly support Christian Zionism, even though I am a Christian, because it is complicit in the dispossession and oppression of all Palestinian people. And so that's where my interest began. It was a confusing moment for me because it went against all the things that I'd been told and taught, and it began a journey of discovery and research, and my concern and interest in Palestine and Israel has continued for the last 40 years.
Yes, and also Nick, talking about Christian Zionism, and we know that we've seen a phenomenal growth in Christian Zionism to the extent that even looking at a country like the United States of America, where there are millions of evangelical Christian Zionists in America, and we will delve into your book to understand. But just looking at this growth of Christian Zionists right across America in particular, but also in some other parts around the world.
Yes, well, I think Christian Zionism is a part of a fundamentalist Christian movement. So it's certainly not mainstream Christianity. And Christian Zionist authors give the impression that they know what is going to happen in the near future because of their study of the Bible and the prophecies of the Bible. And everybody is curious about the future, but nobody knows what's going to happen. And this is a false certainty that fundamentalist Christians and Christian Zionists give, because they say that having studied the Bible, they have a kind of timeline which guides them in their predictions of what's going to happen in the future. And we know from the past that everybody who's tried these predictions has proven to be false and to be inaccurate. And so, but people are fascinated with the future, and they trust these leaders who give them misguided information. And also, it's part of a movement that gives a very great sense of certainty. Um, if the Bible says something, then it's to be taken literally, and there's no possibility of any kind of error in the Bible, and therefore they elevate it to a position which you can't really argue with or can't really have a proper discussion about. And so this element of certainty is very attractive to many people who are prepared to set aside their own thinking abilities and just swallow hook, line, and sinker stuff that they are told is true. And because it's being told that it's true by leading people, authorities whom they respect, they fall for it, and they don't exercise their critical thinking faculties.
Yes, and also, Nick, and I'm sure your book touches on this when one looks at Christian Zionism and the belief system that Christian Zionists have. And, they use a religious justification. They say they've got a biblical obligation to support the state of Israel, at the same time looking at the status of Jerusalem as an eternal capital of Israel, and the same would go for the mosque as well. The Al Aqsa Mosque, they have been committed in destroying the Al Aqsa Mosque, rebuilding the temple as well. Now, all of this we know is playing out, and at this point in time, it is contributing to a lot of suffering for the people of Palestine. And I'm sure your book actually touches on all these issues.
Yes, very much so. Christian Zionism believes that they have the responsibility of supporting Israel because they equate the Israel of today with the Israel of the biblical times. And certainly that connection is not a clear connection. And in terms of Israel, it is a recent creation, and it's created without the permission, as it were, of the United Nations in 1948. The vote that the United Nations undertook in 1948 was under extreme pressure from the United States. And although United Nations General Assembly voted in favor of the partition of Palestine, the job of implementing it was given to the Security Council, who never did it, because they knew that if they implemented this decision, war would break out immediately, and they did not want to be responsible for creating a situation of war. There was something else you were speaking about, which I've just slipped my mind. What was it?
Well, I was talking about, for instance, looking at the justification, like, for instance, the building of the temple, the destruction of the Al Aqsa Mosque, which is another issue, and like I said, when I look at the title of your book, A Wound Unhealed, Does Christian Zionism Contribute to Palestinian Suffering? And we know as a result of protecting the mosque, and we see this also with Christian Palestinians as well. They have actually been robbed of their land. They've been robbed from their homes as well. And they've also suffered similar fates in protecting their religious places of worship as well.
Yes, very much so. This again, I must stress this version of Christian Zionism that wants to rebuild the temple and destroy the Al Aqsa Mosque is an extreme version of Christianity. It's based on fundamentalism. And, if we go back to the teaching of Jesus, the most simple and profound of his commands was to love your neighbor as yourself. And I'm sure the three world religions of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity would agree that loving your neighbor is our primary obligation. And this is all set aside in favor of prophecy, which they misinterpret from the Old Testament. And I can't stress enough that this is an extreme view, which is becoming more popular, as you say, particularly in America, but there's a lot of it here in South Africa as well.
Well, Nick, we're going to put you on hold. We're going to play out one or two ads. We'll be back with you in a minute.
Thank you.
Turkey and Syria following a devastating earthquake that has left people displaced and in need of aid to survive. Africa Muslims Agency is providing tents, blankets, food and emergency supplies. Donate now to heal Turkey and Syria at Africa Muslims Agency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Online schooling? Why not? Kurtuba Online Academy is the leading global online Islamic school from grade R to matric, offering South African caps and international syllabus. And it doesn't stop there. We also offer online madrasa for every grade. For more information, visit www.kurtubaonline.co.za. Kurtuba Online Academy, the leading global online Islamic school.
The SANZAF Meals Distribution Project distributes over 85,000 meals monthly. With your assistance, we would like to increase our outreach to even more individuals. Sponsor a meal for as little as 12 Rand or sign up for a debit order from 48 Rand monthly. Visit us at sanzaf.org.za or call us on 011 834 6046 for more information. SANZAF, changing lives through development and relief.
With so many investment options today, it's only natural that you might feel a little confused which route to take. Should I buy shares or should I invest in gold bullion? Randery Jewelers now brings you the Zahab coin, an alternative to the Kruger Rand. The Zahab coin, a solid wealth protector in its purest form of 24-karat gold, is the safest way to protect your wealth. So don't just sit there and watch your paper money depreciate. Change to gold. Call Randery Jewelers now at 031 202 4701 or visit www.rjcoin.co.za. Situated at 151 Essenwood Road, Musgrave, Durban. Randery Jewelers, the family name you can trust. Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Well, the time is just gone 8:36 a.m. as we continue this morning with a book review. My guest, Nicholas Brabazon Kerr, the book called A Wound Unhealed, Does Christian Zionism Contribute to Palestinian Suffering? Nick, just to continue, and I see the picture of the book is up on the screen, and we will tell you where you can actually get your hands on this book. But Nick, just to continue, and many people sometimes have this misunderstanding about the Palestinian struggle, and they look at it as an Arab Israel struggle, as a Muslim Jewish struggle. But people tend to forget that many Christians, and this is a human rights issue as well, where many Christians are on the receiving end of a brutality of by the brutal Israeli apartheid apparatus, but also at the same time, the Christian Zionists have forgotten the fact that it is their fellow Christian brothers, if they call themselves Christians, that they have their fellow Christian brothers and sisters who are also on the receiving end of all the atrocities that are being committed in Israel.
Yes, that's right. In the year 1900, approximately 10% of the population of Israel was Christian. And at that time, the population of Jewish people was 3%. So the rest of the population was Muslim. But there has always been a very small but strong Christian presence in Palestine over many, many centuries. And the fact that Christian Zionists don't relate to their fellow brothers and sisters who are Christians in Palestine is a huge discrepancy in what they claim. And so they favor their relationship with Jewish people, Israelis, over their relationship with fellow Christians in Palestine. And the Christian presence in Palestine is actually getting less and less because people are giving up hope, and if they are able to immigrate or can afford to immigrate, then the number of Christians in terms of the percentage of the population is actually shrinking because people are losing hope in any resolution of the problems and the issues, and therefore they are giving up. Yeah.
Yes, Nick. Now let's get to the book, and you spend a lot of time piecing reports that you've gathered over a period of time, whether it's been journalists, eyewitnesses, other commentators. Just take us through some of the salient issues of the book.
Well, the book is in two parts mainly. There's a historical part in the beginning, in which I look at the history of Palestine, particularly over the last 140 years, and how it was part of the Ottoman Empire, which was defeated during the First World War by the European allies. And after the First World War, Palestine, which was an important but small part of the Ottoman Empire, was handed over by the League of Nations to Britain to exercise what was called a mandate over Palestine. So Britain ruled Palestine from just after the First World War up until 1948. And during that time, Jewish people began to immigrate in increasing numbers into Palestine. And this was made far worse by what happened in Germany under Hitler, when 6 million Jews were slaughtered, sent to the gas chambers. And so the trickle of immigrants to Palestine from Europe, and particularly Germany, became a flood. And the Palestinians began to take fright. They felt that they were being overwhelmed in every way. And during the 20s and 30s, the British allowed the Jewish people to set up what was known as the Jewish Agency, which was a structure which became a government in waiting. And so Britain facilitated what became the actual government of Israel in 1948. So by the time 1948 came, everything was in place for Israel to simply proclaim and officially implement all the things that they had been working towards. And of course, when the partition vote in the United Nations happened, no Palestinians were ever consulted about that. No Arab nations were ever part of the subcommittee of the United Nations, which recommended the partition of Palestine. And so the United Nations vote actually went against the very charter under which they were meant to operate. And one could say that this is a racist a decision that was taken because there was prejudice against Arab people. And as part of the colonial mentality, they felt they had the right to decide the fate and the future of non-European people. And so my book does all that kind of exploration in the first part. And then the second part of the book is tracing the history of Christian support for Zionism back several centuries. Zionism was never called Zionism until Theodor Herzl, a Jewish student studying in Austria, wrote a little pamphlet called The Jewish State. And in it, he began to use the word Zionism for the first time. And then later on, much later on, Christians who believed in this as well began to call themselves Christian Zionists. And so Christian Zionism was given a huge boost by the Six-Day War in 1967, because Christian Zionists felt that Israel was a small, threatened little country with many Arab armies attacking it, and that only by a miracle of God was Israel saved from annihilation, and they took that as evidence of the favor of God on Israel. They took no notice of any atrocities that had taken place, of any human rights abuses. Again, they were obsessed with prophecy from the Bible and how it was being fulfilled, and basically they disregarded some of the other vital elements of their faith. The most simply, love your neighbor as yourself. And so those two are part of the main parts of the book. Well, there's a third part as well, which is individual responses by Jewish people and Palestinians to the situation. And I use as sources several non-Zionist Jewish people. Professor Norman Finkelstein, his parents were survivors of the Holocaust. He's become a great critic of Israel. Dr. Edith Eger, who's a psychologist in America, she's written about her time in Auschwitz, the concentration camp during the Second World War, and other people as well. Dr. Sarah Roy was an American academic who spent time in Palestine and has written about her experience in Palestine, and saying that basically what is happening to Palestinians goes totally against her Jewish values. And then at the end of the book, there's quite a few appendices which add extra information. There's correspondence. You know, one of the great people of the 20th century was Albert Einstein, the great scientist. And he got involved in this issue as well. And he did not support an exclusively Jewish state in Palestine. And he proposed that there should be what he called a binational state, in which there was one country and everybody exercised a one person, one vote situation in a unitary state. But Zionists wouldn't have that. They wanted to have an exclusively Jewish country, and that's what they achieved in the end, to the detriment of Palestinians. And there's also part of at the end of the book, there's a section on the human rights abuses, and in particularly how Israel and America have transgressed international law in doing what they have doing. And so that's a very important evidence to show how Israel and the United States in particular have facilitated the illegal settlement of 700,000 Zionist settlers in what is Palestinian land. And America is, to all intents and purposes, allowing this to take place. Occasionally they make some negative comment, but they have the power to actually stop these things. And one has to realize that America, when Barack Obama was the president, committed themselves to an aid package of 38 billion over a 10-year period. This is more aid than has ever been given to any other country by the United States. And this amounts to both arms, weapons, and also simply cash in the pockets of Israelis. This amounts to the equivalent of $500 per Israeli person per year. And when you think that Israel is now a first world country of the equivalent of Spain and South Korea, why would America be supporting such a wealthy country to this extent? I mean, it just beggars belief.
Well, Nick, I'm actually fascinated from what you've described and the book that what it contains, and going back from the historical Palestine right until present day, and how things have developed and evolved over a period of time. And clearly, this is a must read for someone not only just to read, but to gain a deeper understanding of the issues that have been playing out in that part of the world, and the contribution of Christian Zionism to furthering this cause of Israel. So I'm sure there's a lot to actually unpack. And I have been given a note saying that Provisions, info at provisions.co.za. There is a telephone number 073 073 no, sorry, 031 337 2112. There's a WhatsApp number 083 887 3113. We will put all this up. And for all information on getting your hand on this book, there is an order online facility for you. www.provisions.co.za. Well, Nicholas, I must say thank you very much for that, and for coming on. I know there is so much more we can actually unpack. We can spend a better part of an hour talking about just some of the issues that you have raised with regard to the book that you have published, and we wish you well. We congratulate you on publishing this book as well, and hopefully, once again, to remind our listeners, our viewers this morning, provisions.co.za is the website to go to, and I'm sure that will give a lot more information on how you can get your hand on this book. Nicholas, thank you very much for that, for your time this morning. We do appreciate it, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you, Inayet. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Take care. That is Nicholas Brabazon Kerr with us this morning, the author of the book. It's called A Wound Unhealed. Does Christian Zionism Contribute to Palestinian Suffering? And a lot of information, a wealth of information for readers. So please go on to www.provisions.co.za. Next up, Juma Inspirations.